Hi, and welcome to the 73rd podcast episode of Keen Minds, where we're covering NBC's The Blacklist. We're in Season 6. It's Episode 8, Marko Jankowicz, and Episode 9, Minister D. I'm Jen, a.k.a. Takata Saego.
And I'm Tessa. And how did you like this?
I love them. They've probably been... And I've actually been very fond of the individual episodes, like just as standalone episodes this season. They've been very, very nice, very fun. They're dragging overall, but individually, like the Blacklisters have been interesting and, you know, various things. I really liked these two. And there was, part of that is that there was a mythology dump, which they do. I prefer it when they don't dump it onto us like a cold bucket of water. But I will take it, a freaking pool over my head versus nothing. I mean, I take what I can get.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I actually enjoy the episodes. They were really well made. They kept it was a nice wrap up of at least the first leg of Red's tribulations in the legal system. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the testimony. I enjoyed the judge and the flirting with the judge. I enjoyed that very much so. The episodes were absolutely terrific. I love them. The pacing of them was terrific. It's been a long time since we've had something like that. And we had everything. I mean, we had a lady that was supposed to be pregnant, but is just drugs in Wrestler's apartment. And I mean, he had everything. He had car chase. You have Wrestler with this girlfriend that he picked up in Alter Ego. So I love that they're tying back to another episode. And so this is like Wrestler is getting his own Tom, but in a kind of a weird parallel to getting a girlfriend that started as a fake girlfriend and then apparently became their real girlfriend. And then we have this, and then she's giving birth and there is like somebody collapsing and Liz coming to the apartment all covered in blood. I mean, it's what's not to like. I do have gripes, and the gripes have to do with the mythology. I don't know that they're being sloppy, they're correcting, they're retconning, or that there is a much deeper level of mythology and things are not as apparent as they seem to be. But I'll go into that later because I did like the episode. So let's go into characters.
Okay, let's start, because Samar and Aram had like a 5-second, oh, by the way, we haven't forgot about our other cast members in episode 8. And Samar didn't show up at all. And so, Whimsy...
No, Samar was having headaches.
Yeah, but I'm saying, Mozan didn't show up in the episode. I mean, she didn't even get a moment. That was... No, that was in 609. That was in 09. She was not in 08 at all.
But are we going to do one or another?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that we'll do them together, but I'm just saying in 08, they didn't have anything, and they had smaller parts in 09. And so they're probably the characters that the least amount happened with. We did move forward with Samar's headaches and showing that there are issues with that. It's a very sweet moment, very sweet Saram moment with them in the back. And I don't remember who it was, but someone on Tumblr gifted it and said, what was it? Like how to have migraines. Oh, what was it? It was like how to have migraines with style or something like that, or with grace, I think is what it was, because she was just, back. And and to be fair, like when you have a migraine, you're just like, shut everything off. I don't want it, make it go away. And so, but it was a very sweet moment for them. It's definitely been the running sea story is what all is coming of that. It's been very slow, but I just let those two be happy. I don't trust that they will, but that's my request.
Of course not. Of course not. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting that it was Samar that, found the little thing, and Liz is like, no, we gotta find this thing. Um,
Mm. Yeah, the tape. The tape.
I found the
Yeah,
tape.
that was really interesting. I mean, and it was almost just by accident. I mean, I
Hmm.
think Liz threw something, or not threw it, but she was in such a,
Drop the box
yeah,
and
such a
the
fit that
picture frame.
it just happened to come across, which is,
Hmm.
you know, you don't want to do that too often, but it didn't feel too bad where it happened. And so I didn't, it wasn't a particularly like, oh, Samar found it. She just happened to be the one to pick it up.
Hmm. So I guess that Cooper also had no moments whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, he had that nice, back in, I guess that was '07. Had that lovely, cigar scene with Red, but,
And
um,
this couple, they, just
he
like
had,
go to see this, go to find the other.
yeah, I mean, he had a moment in there when Seema showed up in '09 to,
Yes, yes, he did. Yes, and say I don't trust you. Why you're gonna.
mhm.
Uh,
And
um,
Seema made a very interesting, very interesting comment where he told Wrestler that if he were to perjure himself, he was going to end up in prison right along with his boss.
mm,
Meaning, I mean, that's I think that's the first time we've heard that Seema has every intention to prosecute Cooper at some point, which
I
echoes.
thought that he was referring to Red.
Oh no! See, I got the impression he was referring to Cooper. That he felt like Cooper had perjured himself, and that eventually he was going after him.
I
And but
thought he was
he might have been
referring
referring to Red. He might
to Red.
have.
Because he's
But
just, he keeps making this thing that their task force works for Red,
mhm.
and I thought it was Red. You thought it was Cooper. It's interesting that they framed it like that. That it makes it ambiguous. One of more ambiguous things that we see in the blacklist.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is if it is Cooper that he was referring to, or even if it could be Cooper that he was referring to, that echoes back to that whole conversation in season 5, where Cooper and Wrestler were having the conversation
And
with
exchange
Wrestler's
letters.
letter. Yeah. And
Mm.
by the end of it, they might all end up in prison. And so that's where my brain went with that. And it was a very interesting moment there.
Yeah, very interesting. What I guess that takes us straight into Jennifer and Wrestler and Liz.
Yeah, those three had a lot of overlap. Liz and Ress especially. And I'm just gonna cut all
I
that out.
saw I saw something very interesting, which of course, you got your shipper thing going there, and there were other people. I saw something that, in fact, actually disturbed me. Um, I thought I saw Liz moving into a level of using other people
Uh huh.
that it was a step up for me. And it's a step up was going to be very hard for her to come back
What?
from.
Why do you feel like she was using? I see.
Well,
I saw
when
that in a
well she
completely
had
different.
Jennifer, when she had Jennifer, she was perfectly happy not to tell anybody and let them go on, and even try to basically tell Wrestler that maybe he was the one who, who called the tip on Dread. Um, um, and the moment that Jennifer is taken, and she needs some help, and she needs to then she goes to Wrestler, not before. So Liz is not doing this because she trusts Wrestler. She is going to Wrestler because Wrestler is the most manipulable one at this point. She cannot go to Cooper because Cooper, when she saw Cooper saying that he had not seen him committing any crimes, she knew that Cooper was right on with Red. Samara and Aram have been in their own thing, and Aram is more like, yes, we're going to do whatever to get him out and all that. So she knows that she has nowhere to go with. She went for the weak link like an animal smelling blood.
See, I have a completely different take on that personally. What I saw, and And it's a setup that's used multiple times in the Blacklist. Just to take it with my favorite, I mean, it happened with Tom. Tom was forced into... just because... There was some definite distrust there between Tom to Liz, because he didn't reveal who he was until he was forced to. He was forced into revealing it, and then once he was forced into trusting her with that, the trust was able to grow. And she was able, things were out in the open, and the trust was able to grow, and they got to a healthier place. And I'm not putting this on a romantic level. I'm just saying, for those two characters. That's the way it worked. And that's kind of what I see with Liz as well. And that's how I'm viewing, at the moment, with what we've got, that's how I view it with Wrestler. No, at the time, if she had another option, she wasn't going to trust him with it, whether it was protection or whether it was just, I can better control the situation with the fewer people that know. I mean, a whole bunch of things could have gone into that. But she needed help. She went to Wrestler, and I think she did choose to trust him. And I think that in the end, that's going to be good for her because it opens up that door. He proved himself trustworthy. He proved that he was willing. I mean, I loved that scene where she shows up and you got the flicking hands. She was nervous. Her motions were jittery. She had blood covering her. She knocks on the door. The girlfriend answers, and she's like, crap, this is not good. Rest comes up. They work their way around it, and they're walking off, and she goes, okay, I've got a stolen van downstairs. He goes, it's not so bad. Well, there's a body inside the stolen van. And that whole scene was absolute gold, from the writing to the execution with the actors and the directing. It was absolutely wonderful.
I agree there, but I saw Liz going after Wrestler the same way that she had, the same thing that she's doing with Dembe, manipulating Dembe into keeping her secret.
I do think she manipulated. She manipulated Dembe. Absolutely.
I think that Liz is definitely her mother's daughter. And it's interesting as we see this episode, and we have Katerina at a moment where she feels desperate, as Red told Liz that was the case. We're seeing her do the same things, because I find it interesting. She could have gone to Cooper at this point with this. She could have gone to a lot of places.
She made the comment that she thought she had to go to Cooper, and Wrestler went out on a limb for her and said, let's fix this. And and yes, I mean, there is definitely manipulation there. I'm not denying that at all. I mean, I've always been a little bit fond of Liz's ability to manipulate the board, and she's gotten better at it. I mean, as the seasons have gone on, she's learned, she's grown in that, but I really do think that she was put in a rock and a hard place, and there was a forced trust in Wrestler, and she went there, and it can open the door for it being really good for her. Now, she could screw him over. She could. But as of right now, I don't
think that she did it with the intention of screwing. I think when I talk about manipulating is Liz has an objective. And
everybody has an objective.
It was that moment to get Jennifer and to learn the truth. And she went for the one person that, because he had spent his entire life at the FBI chasing Raymond Reddington, was going to be the most pliable to learn the truth. Especially because you have it in the trial. Red even says, I am prepared to stipulate that Agent Wrestler spent the best years of his life chasing me. And, he lost his girlfriend because of the obsession. So I thought that there is a trust. He's trusting him, but I think that the trusting him serves a purpose.
Well, I mean,
it's
think
not
that...
out of, I really trust you, and I think that we should do this. I think that is more, I'm in a tight spot, just like my mom was. That's what I'm doing.
Well, that's what I mean. That forced trust. When Liz found out who Tom was, it's not like he came to her and said, babe, I've got a confession. This is who I really am. Let me lay it all on the table for you without any outside pressure. I would have loved it if he had, but he needed to get to that point. He needed to grow and become that. And he did well with it. And Liz
but it was a journey up in the light.
It was. And I'm not sure. Liz hasn't quite hit bottom yet, but I do wonder if Wrestler, especially since he has been such a, I mean, and don't get me wrong, he has certainly dabbled in the gray tremendously. That's another thing is I think that, oh, yeah, I know. I'm being nice. I'm being nice. But I do think that Liz, honestly, I think Liz knew there was a body in the car in season 4. I think when he said that he was, moving a body for a buddy and he was being flippant about it, I think she knew.
At least you suspected it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not 100%. And so I think that's one reason she went to him. She went to him for that. She went to him because when she faked her death and ran to Cuba with Tom and Agnes, when she got back, Wrestler was the only person that was like, I get it.
Yeah, she wanted to get away from Reddington.
And so anybody, it doesn't make it negative that that's the person you go to. I mean, and maybe that's, I just don't see it as necessarily a negative thing. It might be a strategic thing, but I don't think it's a negative thing that she went to him for that.
I'm not saying it's negative, but it's definitely darker. I mean, a lot of people are seeing it as, oh, look, she's trusting him. I'm seeing like, I don't know, Wrestler, she's getting you into something that has got a lot of people killed.
I was going to say, one, she's getting into a lot of things that have gotten people killed, and how many bodies did those two hide in like one episode? I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, the body of the woman was returned to the guy with the other guys, so I guess he took them all.
But what did they do with all the bodies with the drug dealers that they killed? I mean...
No, the
Wrestler shot the drug dealer. Yeah. He shot Jankowicz.
I'm sure that they staged a crime.
I think
scene.
they did.
They just probably just left them there.
Still, that's still hiding the body.
Okay.
it's just hiding it out in the open.
It was it was an awesome episode. In that respect, there was any episode where we have a lot of bodies and shootouts and
higher the body count, better the episode.
Yeah, I mean, and how many of them have had these things with like baby being born, and like the. And now we're having this one in which instead of a baby being born,
and Liz was so duped by it. I mean, is it the baby? Are you okay? Like she was super worried about that woman. The girl's like, it's not a baby. And like by this point, the audience knew what was going on, and we're all just going, Liz, no, honey, no. But she had no way to know.
Where did they have another thing in which they're transporting things. Yes, that's going back to the caretaker that was hiding things inside bodies.
Yeah, he did. He hid in bodies and also in like in the caskets and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly was inside the body because they got cutting one of them.
Yeah, that was creepy. Nothing like playing on the cliches of the creepy caretaker.
It was awesome. So that the other thing that was to me very interesting about Wrestler is the way that that little mental gymnastics he's having with two characters, and I thought it was a very interesting position to put Wrestler in, because on one side he has the prosecutor who's a jerk.
Oh, I hate Seema. I want to punch Seema in the face.
He's a total jerk. That back in the days would have been Wrestler natural ally, trying to get Red convicted of everything and kill as many times as possible.
Can we get him as close to death as possible, resuscitate him, and kill him again?
Yeah, exactly. That would be like Seema's total objective on life. And so Wrestler has one side Seema, and the other side this criminal that he's been chasing, only to find at the last minute that it's not who he thought he was.
I couldn't get over him. I cringed so hard, and I don't think it was out of character for him at all, because he's not, at his core, he's not a liar. He's not a manipulator, and so he's up there trying to put.
Pretty good when he had the body in the car.
No, he's good at it. He's gotten a lot better, but that's why I said at his core character.
He was under oath.
Yeah, and like I think that for him, coming from a military or coming from a police family and law enforcement family, I think that means a lot to him to take an oath, and say that you're going to give your honest truth there. And for him to try to balance that, it's, those people that you say, okay, here's what's accurate, but you have to make them believe the other. You have some people that are really good at it. They can walk that thin line and they don't draw attention like Red. It's Red speak. You don't draw attention to the way you're hedging around things. It makes you sound like you're speaking straightforward truth. And then you've got people like Wrestler who are like, yes, Raymond Reddington. Yes, Raymond Reddington. Yes, Raymond Reddington. And just the fact that he kept saying it and kept refusing to make eye contact when he did, I'm just like, oh, sweetheart, get him off the stand. But it also comes back to the interesting bit that you've talked about multiple times. Tom Keene, Katerina Rostova. Raymond Reddington did this. Raymond Reddington did that. Raymond Reddington this. It was never Reddington when wrestlers always referred to him as Reddington. It was Raymond Reddington did this.
Yeah, it was the identity. It's. I mean, that scene to me was masterful in so many parallels that was drawing back to like season 1. I mean, this is going back to when Wrestler had the leg shattered and he's asking how you forsake, and Red says, "Don't judge a book by his cover," And sure, as a book by his cover is a saying, but it's also, if he's a covered agent, that's his cover. And so this is so many levels of identity going in there, because for that particular crime, Wrestler now believed that Red had not committed it, but Raymond Reddington did.
Which is funny, because I think for Wrestler, that actually alleviates a lot for him, for it not to be, because Red got up there and said, I've done a lot of terrible things, but I have never betrayed this country, which I find kind of ironic since he never, refers to America as his country. But I'm sure that will tie in eventually. But I think for Ress, I think that really brings around, like, if
makes
this
it
man...
easier.
Yeah, if this man isn't a traitor to the United States, he can overlook other things because he's not such a terrible being,
Well, and once he gets to the end of the episodes and he realized that he was framed, that Raymond Reddington was framed, and at this point, I think Wrestler is what I love about the addition of Wrestler is that Wrestler is going to bring that investigation by the book. Not by the book in the sense that it has to be like perfect, but in the sense that you're following clues and making things that are logical, which at this point in this kind of things, Liz is not being logical.
Well, there was such a wonderful line there when they're talking in the van. She goes, how are we going to do this? He said, the way we do it all the time, by evidence. And I think you're right. They're setting that up because Wrestler is definitely the type that would chase this down, that would look into this, that might actually help her get to the truth. Honestly, he was the best choice for her to go after.
Yeah, he was, absolutely. But more than that, Wrestler is the first one who is asking the most logical question that Jennifer and Liz should be asking. Why would anyone step into the shoes of a man who's being looked at for traitor by the cabal, by the KGB, who naturally hates him, and who's going to do that? It makes no sense.
Well, you've said that again and again, and when he said that on the show, I went, "Oh, Tessa!" It was so great.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's a logical question, but I think that people that think, oh, Liz should ask logical question, I don't think that they're seeing things from the point of view of Liz. Liz in this thing is very raw, very emotional. She feels so betrayed and so whipped around. There is no logic entry.
It's the same reason that and it got a little extreme towards the end, but earlier on when Tom made some really bizarre, choices. A lot of times when he was making very, you look and you're like, that's not a good choice for a trained operative to make. It was because when you looked at it, he was always making those decisions when linked to something that he was super emotionally attached to. It had to do with Liz. It had to do with his family. And so he was making these quote unquote bad choices when it came down to being, like you just said about Liz, raw, emotional, things that, people that are more sociopathically leaning are not necessarily going to be the best at, I suppose. I mean, or people that have, not even sociopathic, people that have just had great emotional trauma. Let's just go there. Because both of these people have had insane emotional trauma super young. You had Tom kidnapped at 3, Liz kidnapped potentially multiple times, gunning down her father at 4, supposedly. And everything that happened in and around that, however long it was. And, I mean, so that sort of emotional trauma, when resurfaced and when brought, especially if it's linked directly to that, like it is with Liz, or just in Tom's case, he pushed it down for so long, he didn't bother with his emotions for so long, that when he did finally start, he was so emotionally...
They overwhelmed him.
Yeah, he was emotionally stunted. I mean, it's not supposed to be a mean thing. I love Tom Keene, but he was, he did not mature correct, as most human beings do, as most socially acceptable human beings do.
It's and that is something that is actually well written, because people who have emotional trauma tend to have that kind of stunted development.
And that's what I'm saying. Liz, it makes sense for her to have these moments, these wild moments, and that's... people say that she flip-flops, and that's been a complaint from very early on. I was actually talking to someone the other day, and they were like, oh, well, Liz isn't very smart. And to be fair, he stopped watching early on. I was like, she's gotten better. She's very smart. She's very clever. She's just... all of this, everything of this show...
And she mentioned that to Red. It's been very hard.
Yes.
From the very beginning.
Well, she mentioned it to Wrestler.
Years.
And I thought that was a very true moment. Yeah.
For 5 years, it's been very hard.
And this is another reason why I think it's good that she has Wrest on her side. I'm very pro Wrestler being in on The Secret for many, many reasons. And I think that it's going to be good for her to have someone who has seen her go through all of this. He's been there from the get-go. He showed up at her home and said, Agent Keene, I need you to come with me, and loaded her on a helicopter. And I mean, so he has literally been there since the first day that when she re-met Red. And he's seen all this. He knows what she's been through. He knows what kind of effort she's taken to try to break away. And he supports her. And he is the only person that would 100%, I think, support her. Cooper might. But that's still an iffy situation because Cooper has a
history with Red. And Cooper's agenda... It's not clear.
Well, I mean, he's got a history with Red.
More and more clear.
He's got a history with Red. He's also got a status in the FBI that I feel like it's more pressure to trust him, than it would be to trust, because, he's telling Liz, if you want to, end this, we'll end it. But she's also listening to Cooper say things like, look how much good we've done.
Mm-hmm. I think the Cooper agenda. I think it's going to play a role in this season, which I'm very happy to hear, or to see, because it's definitely. I mean, he's overdue, and the blacklist is very good at having clues that are not language oriented, and a lot of of course, Tumblr don't discuss that much anymore, but I see that in Reddit, for example, a lot of people discuss these things, and they cling to what is said, and that's all good. I mean, what is said is important, but people lie. People are under surveillance. People give covers. The most important thing, and Red remind us, is you have to learn to read people like books. You have to look at their gestures and their posture and not what they say.
This is actually really funny because as I'm on the third rewrite of my pilot episode for my own show that I'm writing, I've been trying to figure out how to convey this because there are so many characters in the show that are deep in the gray that they lie all the time. I mean, we've got one who's a literal spy, a couple that are literal spies, FBI agents that work deeply in the gray that are not your typical FBI agents, and they are consistently lying to each other and to themselves and to everybody that's listening. Like, it's just as easy to assume that what's coming out of their mouth is a lie as the truth. And so it's a balance as a writer to find a way to write those characters versus making an unreliable narrative. And so, because I know that's something that, I've always heard about, something I think about regularly, reliable narrative, because the audience and the reader and the audience, depending on what genre, what type of writing you're working with, needs to be able to feel like they know the world and they can accept the world and they have someone they can trust, someone they can
Blacklist.
but even in a show like The Blacklist, and I mean, this is very much, the same type of show where you just don't know who to trust. There still has to be something of stability. And so it's such a double-edged sword there, and it's so difficult to write. And it's something that, I've been writing since I was very little. I mean, character development for me is something that's it's just there. It just exists like breathing. And, but it's still so freaking hard to try to convey that to an outside audience. And I'm trying to imagine the writers on Blacklist, especially if we do have something like a twist that Cooper has a deeper agenda, which is very possible. And, so many of these things, it'll be interesting. And honestly, I'm not certain we'll know who the most reliable narrative is until the very end.
No, we won't. And it's entirely possible that we will not know who's the most reliable narrator.
But, I mean, like, I sit there and I hear people say, well, Red said such and such. It's like, yes, he did, but Red also started the entire series out, I'm a criminal. Criminals are notorious liars. He told you right there, my narrative is not reliable.
Well, that is a...
Or his words are not straightforward.
Yeah. A lot of people quote that, and I gotta say it because it bothers me. I'm trained in classical logical thinking. I'm a criminal, notorious liars. Everything about me is a lie. Is taken to mean I'm a criminal, all criminals are liars. Everything I say is a lie. And that's not what it says. The second thing that I said, all criminals are liars, that implies that everything he says is a lie. Criminal are notorious liars means most criminals lie most of the time. Not every criminal lies every time. And thus, they have created a narrative in which they have now, they're 3 levels deep in deception.
But I don't think that Red lies every time, by far. That just makes it more complicated because I don't want to call it a guessing game because I think there is a pattern to it. It's very difficult to find. It's very difficult to figure out which time you can trust him and which you can't, which makes excellent writing. And I have always been, and honestly, I still to this day say that they could not have done this show without James Spader because
it would have been different.
It would have been an entirely different show. Mm-hmm. Like it might not have been any worse. I don't know, but Raymond Reddington would have been an entirely different character. James Spader brings to this show a depth with that sort of speaking and the ability and the
to convey those
bravado
things
that he uses with it is just incredible.
Should we go into Dembe? Because Dembe had a couple of very interesting moments.
Yes, Dembe's been fantastic. So here's one question, because I saw this posted, or saw this referenced on Tumblr, about that was just kind of I think it was on Tumblr, somewhere in there. I saw someone just assume that he didn't kill Renard, and Marguerite Renard. And that was not at all what I took away from it. When I watched that scene, it was very open-ended. He may have just delivered her to Scotland. He very well might have. I watched it, and it was a very heart-wrenching scene because you could tell that Red really didn't want to ask him, but he didn't feel like he had any choice. So you don't get the impression that Red has asked Dembe to be his firing gun very often. And we haven't seen him ask Dembe that. In fact, Dembe has asked him not to fire the weapon before, multiple times, or has, expressed disagreement with it. And with Renard, I almost saw a distorted reflection of Red in that moment and granted, very different backgrounds for the character and, emotional depth between the characters. But when Red took Kate out to that plot of land and went into the monologue about how she'd always wanted something beautiful and this and that, and basically made it sound like he was taking her to this place that she would love, to spend out her days, and then tried to kill her. At least you're dying in some place beautiful. But I almost saw, if he ended up killing her, I saw this distorted mirror of it, in which he was taking her to this beautiful place to die. And I could see where it's distorted there is for Dembe, I do believe it would be something of a kindness, for him, where it was cruel for Red. And it's a very complicated feeling I have towards the scene. I did see this.
Your take is that he did kill her.
I'm leaning that way personally. But I think that they left it intentionally open-ended. Okay. He very easily could have delivered her to Scotland and just tucked her away.
I can't go there because Dembe has been the one actually giving Liz sending her to the apartment so that she would find the picture.
That's true.
Telling a lot of things and asking Red, why can't you be honest with her? So they're being honest with Liz.
I was going to say, by the way, we were talking about reliable narratives. Dembe. I think Dembe may be a reliable narrator. That's a very good possibility that at the end of this, Dembe will be the one that will look back and go, he was the one we could trust the whole way through.
But so Dembe is the one who has been asking Red, why can't you be honest with her? You have to tell her about Tom. You have to tell her everything. Consistently, he has been with that, and not just consistently telling Red to tell her. He has been the one who told her to send her to the apartment. He has been the one who also told her about Kate. She has been with Tom and Cooper, the ones who have given Liz answers when Red wouldn't. So I think that because that Red said, I don't know why, can I be honest? I don't think that Dembe will take killing a woman whose mistake was to be there to the surgery that Red wanted. Because let's say that, oh my God, it was something horrible done to Red against his will. And maybe it was. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he was taking it against his will and have the surgery done. But this woman is not. It's not really the.
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't heard anybody voice that, and honestly, it hadn't crossed my mind that maybe maybe Katerina forced the surgery on him.
Well, it's also entirely possible that the surgery was not done on him at all. Because remember that when Lord Baltimore is looking at Reddington, they keep talking about, I found Reddington. Reddington is here, and we're thinking that it is Raymond Reddington, and it's Carla Reddington. So was that done on Reddington, or was that done on somebody saying that she's Mrs. Reddington? So here we are. We have a character who has said he's there to save his soul, who keeps telling Red, you have to tell her. Why can't you be honest? So honestly, all this thing is not about something that it would be dangerous for Red or it would be dangerous for Liz, because otherwise he wouldn't be telling Red, you have to tell her. So I sincerely doubt that he killed that woman. I'm sure that, and even I mean, for all we know, even what this woman, what we think Red was saying, maybe all Red was saying is take her to Krylov, that is now set up in Scotland, and have him, erase the memories of this woman so that she would never remember anything about that. So there is a lot of assumptions, and I don't think that Dembe would have killed an innocent woman that was a nurse, and that was her big thing for this secret. I mean, this is not even the paramedic that was hired to take this is a woman who is a nurse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's bad.
I was gonna say, I mean, putting it that way, I think you're right. I tend to lean towards you now, putting it in that light. That you're right. He did send Liz to the apartment, and he has tried to drop breadcrumbs for Liz to find the truth all throughout.
So I don't think that he did, but it was very interesting what he did with first, and then you also have that other moment of kindness of towards this homeless woman. He's a kid, really, and he gives him $3,000, a pair of shoes, and a coat.
Yeah.
And to keep whether he helps or not. So that is a different kind of man. He's shown to have whatever he's doing with Red, he's saving his soul. And you don't save the soul of somebody by killing an innocent woman whose big mistake was to be the nurse of a guy who changed the face of someone supposedly Red. I think.
No, I'm actually, like, after that explanation, I'm inclined to agree with you. I hadn't thought about it in that light, and now that I have, I lean towards that.
And a lot of people are very angry that he lied to Red. He didn't lie to Red. He speak Red, so he's getting a dose of his own medicine.
The iffy part is the traitor thing. And speaking of that, I have a question for you. Because I know what I think Red was referring to. And I hope it wasn't actually what he was referring to, because otherwise that takes 2 episodes in which I was pretty fond of Red for the first time forever and makes me want to punch him in the face again. But there was a moment in there of the utter relief when Dembe said that Liz hadn't betrayed him. And he says, oh, good, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the extent of,
betrayed me again.
Yeah, it was the again. And what do you think the first one was?
The obvious choice is that it was when she faked her death.
That's what I'm hoping he wasn't referring to. That's what I'm really hoping he was not referring to. But as far as I can tell, that's it. But it was him. But that's almost cruel to say about a 4-year-old. That's not a betrayal for a 4-year-old. And so, but you never know. There could have been something else in there. Because supposedly, Liz's memories have been altered twice. As a child and some other time. And so, it's possible that she actually has run across Red at a different point and that her memories were altered again. And so, there could be another betrayal, whether true or not, back there that we just don't know about, in which she ran across him when she doesn't have any memory of.
Or he could be referring to learning the secret and not telling him anything.
Could be, but I think that would all kind of wrap into the same. Trying to think of the phrasing. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the idea of the memories, but you mentioned Krylov a few minutes ago, and it sparked it.
So I think that the obvious is when she faked her death, and Red saw that as a betrayal.
I hope it's not the obvious. One, because I have too high of an opinion of the writing team, and two, just because it makes me want to hit him hard.
But there is something about that memory that we just still don't know what it was, because there is two things that you see. You see in 210 when Liz can't remember the shooting. She remembers the shot. She remembers hearing a shot and then running in there. But in the second memory in 222, the way that she's aiming that gun could be a manipulation by Krylov, or that she had been trained by Katerina. And Katerina says one thing in that.
That's a hell of a training, because I'm like, have you ever fired a handgun?
Yes, many times.
Okay, well, I don't know. You're up in New York.
And not in New York, but in my life, yeah. In fact, okay. I think I started shooting when I was about 6.
I was gonna say, I mean, like, I'm from Texas, so like a lot of people fired guns here. That's not as abnormal, but I know in different parts of the country it's different. So I just didn't want to assume. Goodness.
Yes, I've had fire, and I started firing it when I was about 6.
Okay. Oh, did you? Okay. Well, I certainly didn't start that young. But I know some people do. But 4 years old, okay. I guess it's just from my personal experience, because I was an adult the first time I fired a gun. And I mean, even as an adult, there was a lot, I mean, because I'm a very petite person. I mean, and you're pretty small too. So I guess as a kid, you were probably pretty small. But it just, I'm thinking of the... Huh?
I was huge.
Oh, did you?
I was a big girl, yeah.
Oh, okay. You shot up before and then grew into your height?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. I was like, but what
I'm thinking is that, like, 4 years old, you're really small. You don't have a lot of coordination. So I'm sitting there. There's still a big difference between 4 and 6. And
yeah, there is. But there is a lot coming in there. So hold that thought, and we'll come back to that thought later. Because there is one thing that Katerina, that Red remember in Cape May about teaching the child. And that is, I know that Red says it, but Red didn't teach the child. It was Katerina that had Liz most of the time. So I think that Red there was repeating something said by Katerina, because this is all happening in his mind. These are his memories. These are his hallucinations. Nothing in here. It's coming opium. From. Huh?
Lots of opium.
Yes, opium will do that to you. So he's basically, Cape May to me feels like, you know, when you have an argument with somebody and then that somebody dies or moves out of your life, and you kind of like got that thing inside you, and you quite never got to work out or to talk about these things. And then one day you start having the argument in your head. Like, yes. You talk about this person, and then you talk like yourself, and then you go back and forth trying to see things from different perspectives. That's what Cape May feels to me. It's an argument that they had before and that Red quite couldn't see before. And with the opium and the pain and the grief, he starts seeing things different. And he says, Katerina said, so who's teaching the child and preparing the child and nurturing the child? It almost feels to me like he was preparing Liz to be a spy. She was preparing Liz to be a spy.
Well, I'm sure she was, because, I mean, she was in the middle of the Soviet Union. At the time, it hadn't broken apart. You know, it hadn't, you know, the wall hadn't fallen. It was still in the height of the Cold War. And to her, that's all she knew, especially if Dom was a spy, too. I mean, it was a family trade. And not only was she working for the Soviets, but she was also working for the Cabal. So she was double time a spy. And
I think funny. She was a triple time.
Well, potentially, yeah. I mean, and so she was not only a legacy spy, but she was also at least double, maybe triple times a spy for various organizations. And because she was working with Alan Fitch, it would make it very easy to be, you know, I mean, because Alan was obviously an American, you know, worked for the CIA, and I mean, that's a perfectly logical step for someone who has been not just immersed in it as an adult, but probably raised in that to raise her own daughter that way. She's just preparing her. She's protecting her. She is protecting her. And it's the exact same way that Red has approached it. And I'm not toting Red Arena. But that's still the same approach that Red's taken to her since the pilot episode.
You gotta learn to survive in this world.
Of training her. And that's also what I personally think that was happening in Redemption. I think that there was a lot of, using Tom by Howard, quote unquote, you can't see my air quotes, using Tom by Howard because he was preparing him for various things, that he was, getting to that point, that it wasn't necessarily out of a hate thing. It was this situation, you're emotionally compromised and your mother may be a horrible human being, so I'm going to make you see it for yourself, and then we're going to regroup on the other end of it, no matter what it takes. And I always saw Howard as a very Red type individual.
And so did Scotty. I mean, I'm thinking that they all have to be very similar.
I do. And I really, was this the first time that it's been canonically noted that Katarina was part of the Cabal?
Yes.
Because I have just accepted that for like 3 years of my life.
Well, I knew it because of the numbers. The numbers had already given me that.
You and I have talked about it for years. I've written about it for years. To me, Kat was part of the Cabal. Red was at least affiliated with it. Here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, and I think I asked you this on Tumblr and you never answered. I asked a couple people and I haven't gotten any answers from people. And so here, I will get an answer from you now.
Okay.
I've got you on the podcast. I can get my answer. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's possible that Katarina gave Red the fulcrum to protect him? That she knew this was coming, even though he stole Masha / Liz, stole her away, that she loved him, because he was the father of her child, because she loved him for him, regardless of the situation, that she handed him the fulcrum to be able to make that argument to Fitch.
It's possible. It's very, very possible. The fulcrum in the whole Cabal, it's going to be a lengthy discussion, and we can go into it now because we're basically done with the others and now down to. Well,
we've still got
Jennifer.
Red. We've still got Jennifer and Red. And so.
One of the things that is the most intriguing and irritating at the same time of the Blacklist is that this episode was phenomenal. And on the surface, it seemed like so much was explained, right? Because for the first time we're hearing that Raymond Reddington was set up by Katarina, and that they set him up as a traitor, which actually is tying really nicely back to what Admiral Richard said. He's speaking about treason, whether before we haven't heard treason up until Admiral Richard. He's the first one who mentions treason. And we hear about, and we have heard about Red feeling, and Red saying that he was an angry man who couldn't trust anybody, who couldn't believe that there was trust or loyalty. That's a beautiful speech in the Kilgannon Corporation that he gives Liz, like, why is Dempe with him? To save him because of who he was when he met him. And he became very different. He became a different person. And of course, this is all going to imposter versus supplanter, and it gets very complicated because of it. But while we are getting an episode where we are hearing all these beautiful things and the testimony and Red is speaking about what it was with Katarina, nothing is matching up. Absolutely nothing is matching up. And because what this episode did in terms of canon was put the fire in December of 1990. And a lot of people who pay attention, but not compulsive attention, would think, yeah, but that was logical. I mean, then, that the fire was in 1990, he disappeared in 1990. It's the one event that people were saying that no, the fire was never in 1989. It was in 1990. He disappeared in 1990. The disappearance and the fire is one event. That's why he didn't show up, because he was dead. And then in 1991, Katerina gets this Red to become Reddington. And that seems all very convenient. Except that that's not quite what we have had in early years. Because we now have 3 dates of birth for Liz, 3 years apart. This will put Liz to be 4 years at the fire, born in 1986. The fire is in 1990. She's 4 years old. It hasn't got to 19 March, so she's 4. The way that Liz said in season 2, she was turning 31 in 2015. So that would put her being born in 1984.
She also said she wasn't certain of when her real birthday was.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I'm getting on. And then there are the other events that put the fire in 1989, which are Braxton, who's sent by Peter, who had a very good idea that he had to go to a fire 26 years before, in 2015, which gives us 1989. And that would also align with that tombstone that I suppose Kate commissioned with 1985. So Liz may have thought that her birthday was, that she was born in 1984. The tombstone and the fire by Braxton via Peter puts a fire in 1989 on her birthday in 1985, and this new information puts her birthday in 1986. And that is not sloppy writing. That's a disaster. So either it's the blacklist got to a point of no return, or there is a lot going on in here that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface.
I have 2 comments on that.
Yes.
Are you ready for it? Are you done?
I am absolutely ready.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting in the middle. All right. So the first one is much shorter. 1994. It's the bane of my existence, the blacklist. That's not true. That's not true. The fact they killed Tom was. But 1994 in the major, they put 1994 scrolled across the bottom with Tom at 14 years old. And then had to, and at the time I remember going, why are they trying to age a man like Ryan Eggold, who has a baby face? Like, you shave his beard off, and that man looks like he's about 10 years younger, no matter how old he is. I mean, he has got a baby face. So why are they trying to age a man with a baby face up? All right, whatever, whatever. It seemed, obviously it means something. It didn't. They went back on it. And I think since then they've actually admitted that was just a screw up. And they have those.
Yeah, they do.
Have those. That's my short version. Second one's a little longer. Sorry. So just bear with me here.
Yeah.
Because I need to tell a story to explain. And I swear this is coming back around to the blacklist. So at Christmas, my mom, who is a big physical puzzle fan, I am more of a mental puzzle fan. I am that person, and I do this at my job, I do this in my writing, I do this in my fandoming. I look at a bunch of things that are floating out there, and I make them fit. I find things that make sense. I find things that conflict. That's just, I'm weird. My brain works in a very bizarre way. It works in a very puzzly sort of way. But it's all very abstract. I have never been a physical puzzle person, which is very bizarre. My mother is, And at Christmas time, and my entire life, she's tried to get me to do puzzles, and I never have been a fan. So at Christmas, she bought me a puzzle, and I'm going, oh my God. But then she bought me a Van Gogh puzzle. And I'm like, you knew how to rope me in. Okay. And so she bought me a Van Gogh puzzle. And this last weekend, was the first time I had some time to get over there and sit down and start in on this with her. As I'm sitting there and we're working on it, I was just 500% focused on this because, all right, I've chosen to do this. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to do it really well. And we were working through this picture, and I'm finding these different patterns. I'm doing these different things, and it's just all these things. And as we're talking about the Blacklist mythology, all my brain is coming up with is that white puzzle with red. And I remember at the time thinking, how do you even put that thing together? It's all white. Do you know the one I'm talking about? In the white apartment with the white, with the blood and the wine and all of that.
There's been a few puzzles in the series.
No, this is a very specific one.
Yeah, I know, the white puzzle in the white apartment. It was in, the diorama thing.
But, but you know which one I'm talking about. The white walls, the white apartment, the white puzzle. And I remember at the time thinking, yes, thank you. And I remember at the time thinking, how does he do that? Like, how do you even do that? And, like, as I'm working on this with my mom, that keeps popping back up to me, like, at least here I've got a photo to work off of. How would you do a completely white puzzle? It seems almost impossible. And I feel like as the audience, and I felt like this is the small hope I continue to have with the Blacklist. That keeps gnawing at me, even when I feel like something has been, like, all the things that my reliable narrative, my personal reliable narrative has been blown to hell. What I keep going back to, that nagging little hope of mine, is all the seasons past in which I thought that they had written themselves into corners and they come up with something brilliant that everything makes sense. I feel like there is and I may be really wrong about this, and we won't know until the end, but I hope that this is a big white puzzle and that they know how all the pieces are fitting together. We're looking at it as the audience because we don't have all the pieces, and this goes back to Mom's and Mine's puzzle because we're working on a very small table, a relatively small table. We were putting pieces on cookie sheets and stacking them on one another and, just so that we could lay them all out. And so my dad's looking over at us and going, this is insane. What are you people doing? And I said, yeah, it's a pain because we're looking at pieces and so many of them we're not even looking at because they're over in the corner because they're on cookie sheets. And that's what we're dealing with at the Blacklist. The pieces that they know are over on the cookie sheets, we don't know that. And so we're seeing this big white blank puzzle.
I will go a step further on that. In that, because I'm a puzzle person, both in like mental puzzles and in physical things, and it's beyond that. In a puzzle, you got pieces, and then you see, oh my God, this one's have like a little thing of color, and so you assemble that piece, and now you got a small little piece assembled, and then you find another one that has another thing that you recognize, and you have all these tiny little pieces, and maybe pieces of the border. And you think that they go one way, but when you're going to put them in there, they don't really go that way. And what you're missing is a connecting piece. Once you have a connecting piece, and then you find in that little corner in the cookie sheet, you find one piece that has half of one color and half of the other. And there you go. Now you put them together.
It all makes sense when you find that connecting piece, but we're missing the connections right now. And that's what to be able to continue to watch this show and to be able to continue to be, and I will, because I've put so much time, I've put so much emotional and artistic energy into this show that I will continue to watch to the end, but I have to hope that there is a solid ending. And that's the thing that I think has worked so much against John Bokenkamp, that he's a feature writer and that he had an ending in mind, and now he's having to thin out his story so much to make it to that end. That thing that's working against him is also the thing that, to a degree, is making me more hopeful. That I believe him that he has an ending, that he has had solidly in his mind from the get-go, and that he's not going to screw us over on that. He may screw us over in the interim. Not actually. I mean, like, I think he's doing the best that he can on it, but
I am going to sedge in here with my personal thing, and a lot of you who follow me, and I gotta say, because I do have to give a little kudos, there is somebody that is both in Reddit and in Tumblr. Her handle is Jennifer525, Jen5225.
Who is, by the way, not me.
Yes.
She's not me, you guys. Don't harass her. Come harass me if you need to harass.
Yeah. You don't believe my theory. So 2 different Jens. There's a lot of Jens in my life at this point. So
we are taking over. We are taking over the world.
I am afraid of it. Okay. Maybe I'll call myself Jennifer.
Be afraid.
From now on. Yeah.
And Jennifer Reddington.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Reddington.
Yes.
I'm telling you, we're taking over the world.
Yeah. So here's the thing. A lot of what we have believed and done for people who are puzzle writers and for character developer, it's a belief that Red, however he does speak in riddles and Red speak, and widely misleads people as much as he can, and whenever possible puts them in the other direction. Don't ever correct on the wrong assumption if you can. That Red doesn't like to listen. And that has been doesn't lie-ish. He does Red speak, which is not a lie. If I omit something, it's not a lie. Not to me. For the majority of people.
There have been some very iffy moments that can be explained, but not yet in canon.
And for example, where did he lie?
Oh, what was the exact phrase? I don't know much more about him than you do, or something along those lines about Tom.
That is a
which you and I have been over, and your theory on it rings true to me. It does, but it's still not canonical until it's noted in canon.
Yeah, well, and that might not be. It's simply that from the point of view of Red, what he knew of Tom is that, I don't even know his real name. I know that I hire him and he's an operative and he may be working for my enemy. That's what Red knew. But
I knew he hired him.
Yeah, but that was in the whole thing of who Tom is. That is very little. What Liz knew about Tom.
That's the biggest thing to Liz, though.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Liz. Red is answering about this general. That's what Red speak is. Can I get out of this without telling a direct lie? Yes, I can, because, hey, if somebody, let's say that I'd be in Red's position, and Liz would ask me the exact same question, I would say, not more than you, because what I know, it's very little. I have no idea how he likes his eggs. I don't know if he's a morning person or not. I don't know how he uses a gun. I don't know if he's a good shot.
Have you ever read the pilot script for The Blacklist?
Yes.
I love that. Like, I have to intentionally not use the phrase. I love it so much. I keep wanting to write it down in my own script. I'm blanking on the actual phrase. It was talking about Tom in the first explanation, in the first character descriptions of him. It says, what was it now? God, now I'm trying to recall the actual phrase, but it was like, he doesn't do mornings or something like that. It was just the way it was phrased was so wonderful. Yeah. And I have so many characters that don't do mornings.
So in a way, Liz being a profiler and living with this guy, which is what she comes to understand after a while, is that she did know a lot about Tom. You know, the same way that Tom does with Lena. Talk to me about him. Tell me everything about him. So that it's not really a lie, but so this came because if we have the fire in December of 1990, we have Red telling Liz a direct lie. That Katerina Rostova walked into the ocean 2 months after the fire in 1990. And that, my friend, cannot happen
hang on just a
until
second.
that year had 2 years.
No, hang on just a second. What was that the exact phrasing? She walked into the ocean?
Yes.
To be fair, she could have dipped her feet and it would have worked. I mean,
Yes.
if we want to go on the same thing that we went with Tom, she could have literally walked into the ocean, walked right back out, and he could phrase it, she walked into the ocean.
Walked into the ocean, never to be seen again.
Was Katerina Rostova ever seen again?
Not that we know of. But that is fair. That is fair.
If she went by a different name, if she chose a different name afterwards,
Katerina was never seen again. Katerina Rostova was never seen again. Katerina, and he kept referring. So it's fair. But you know, when I first saw that, and Jen had walked me back. The other Jen had walked me back from the abysm, saying, "Wait, we can work this out." There is theories that Katerina was a firefighter.
wait, we can work this out. I love it.
Yeah. That there is that Katerina was a firebug. I mean, we already know that she set a fire and left this. And look at the parallels we're having here. There is a fire set that kills the significant other of somebody and leave the other person with a face destroyed on one side. Yeah. So I love it that it goes right back to the fire. So that is my thing. Is like if we can't trust what Red says to Liz, then I'm working out what do we have without anything that Red has said to Liz.
See,
let's say that everything.
I have for a very long time thrown the Red never lies to Liz out. And so because I've thrown that out, it goes back to what I said earlier about reliable narrative and that fine razor's edge that you balance on can I trust this? Does it match up to other things? Can I not trust this? And some things that you think feel right, you find out later aren't, and some things you think feel wrong. And a lot of it is, I mean, I'm sure there are, when you have the whole picture, which we don't have. We do not have the whole picture. Only the writers' team does, and probably only the Johns do. But once you have the whole picture, I think that it won't be such a gut reaction. But for people that study character, for people that study theories, and will be right and wrong, and obviously I've screwed up multiple times along the way. I mean, I've thought, because, in the end, I'm going to read it how I would write the character. And you're going to read it how you would, do the theory. I mean, that's just human nature. But we still take into account, those of us that go at it, that spend our time on, Thursday nights, an hour plus of our time recording podcasts about theories and characters. We have at least a good grasp, I think, of the story. And so while you might call it a gut reaction, it's coming from all the knowledge that you have of it. But until that whole picture, until that whole white puzzle is finished,
there
and
are
many things up in the air.
Entirely. You even made the parallel that in the 100th episode they were giving us a clue that had to be read together. Without the 4 coins, you couldn't get the clue. Remember, you had to put them together, and what was the clue was in the defects, in those things.
I am still convinced. Yeah, Oh, thank you. Thank you for using my thing and coming back around to make the point. No,
Yeah.
I do. And it's funny. It's things that I'm also learning and trying to keep in mind as I'm writing myself, that you don't. I was listening to a podcast. I listened to the Script Notes podcast, which is about screenwriting, and they were they were talking. Oh no, this wasn't on Script Notes. This was Aaron Sorkin's masterclass that I was listening to, and he was talking about characters and developing characters and all of this. And he said it's a very fine line that you have to balance on because your audience is not stupid. Don't treat them like they're stupid. You don't want to hand them anything on a silver platter, but you also don't want to make them feel like they can't capture anything. And so it's that fine line that you have to balance. And I think that's where we're at. We're in the end game right now. And to quote Avengers, we're in the end game.
They say that we're going to get another season. So we're not really in the end game.
You know what? Until the season is actually verbalized from NBC, until NBC gives them that time, I don't know. Because I don't think that they have enough story for it. They may get another season. I think it'll depend on how. I don't think that Enemy Within came across quite as well as they did, but spring shows never do. And we'll just see. I did see that they have already renewed. They've already renewed New Amsterdam. They've already renewed Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Those are the only two I think I've personally seen. They may have renewed other ones. I have not seen a renewal from the Blacklist. My guess is it'll go right up to the wire again. But my hope is that the Johns, if it is not going to be renewed, that the Johns know. And NBC, and to be fair, it's a production group, it's a network. They are a business and they're in it to make money. And so I don't expect them to put, their fans in front of their money, which you would think wouldn't be the way, but, but I have seen them make decisions in the last few years that have given me more trust in NBC almost over other networks, because I've seen other networks just totally screw their viewership over, and NBC seems very aware. I feel like they're more trustworthy. I may be wrong. I don't know. We'll see. But I would like to at least believe and that if they are not going to give Blacklist at least, a half season to tie up, that they will let the Johns know within enough time to be able to tie up in the 6th season. I think that they will allow us to tie. That they'll give us a solid ending.
I certainly hope so, because, for example, my little quandary thing is not going to be so easily resolved, because this contradicts the entire timeline. Because he says Katerina Rostova committed suicide in 1990. And also walked into the ocean 2 months after the fire. So maybe it is that she didn't commit suicide, but Constantine thinks she did. So it could have been very well that she faked a suicide at one point for Constantine's sake. Katerina had to have been, that she, if she was a double or a triple agent, she had to have been juggling so many things. And I like your idea that it was her who gave the fulcrum to Red.
I'm really fond of that. Yeah, because I feel like Kat, we're hearing so much negative about her right now. We really are. Because, Liz is hearing that she set her father up. And Liz, being the way Liz is, the least she knows about a person, the more she deifies them. We saw it with Katerina in season 4, that she thought Red was her father, or at least, or Kirk, Kirk or Red, that Kirk was her father and that Red was was the interloper. And so she had this glorified image of Katerina in which she literally hallucinated her in the room and was talking about, I mean, this is in 3 and 4, that she wanted her at her wedding, she wanted her here, she wanted her there because she was becoming a mother. I mean, and this is the woman that Red straight up told her she wanted to abort you. And I talked her out of it. I mean, so, like, if I were a child that had been given up for adoption, I mean, even if it was, given over to a friend for adoption, and I heard that, I wouldn't have a lot of kind feelings. I mean, regardless of the situation, that's still kind of, that's rough. I mean, my mother didn't want me to exist,
Well, there was also the issue that Katerina, what was going to say about that?
But Katerina was the one she knew the least about, and so because of that, I feel like she was able to deify her just a little bit more and look at her in a little bit kind of a light, because basically all the holes of the things she didn't know, she filled in with what she wanted.
Yeah. Well, also that it came back. What Liz never had got an answer from is she has asked Red 2 times, was she a terrible person? And he is never giving an answer about that.
But so circling back on the mythology, because we've gone down so many rabbit holes. But circling around on the mythology, I know that you had a lot of issues with it, with a lot of things that aren't connecting currently. I mean, that's the gist of what you're having issues with. Mm-hmm. I think one of my things, and to be fair, I have not run I used to run personal timetables all the time. I am freaking absurd with knowing my timetables on everything, on TV shows, on fan fiction, no, it's really not. Like, I literally,
I have line with things written on it. It's not difficult.
I mean, like, I use Final Draft for my scripts, and it's got a lovely beat board that it has worked into it. And because I'm on my 3rd draft, I already have my beats worked out on a different draft. I have currently on my beat board for my current draft my timeline because I realized that I was skipping over a day, and that was going to confuse me because people were traveling, people were doing this, they were doing that, they were, researching, et cetera, et cetera. And because of where and I'm like, okay, I need to have a timeline because we're not moving from consecutive moment to moment. There are jumps. And so for myself, even though the audience may never cue into that, they may or may not, as the writer, I need to have it. And so I always have it for everything I do. I am absolutely absurd with it.
Especially when you're talking about the date of birth of your main character. I mean,
that's true. You should always do that.
In the Tom King, you get Liz and Red, and they're in the top of the character list, and then you get all the other characters. It's fine if you don't know the date of birth of Tom or Wrestler or Cooper, but you have to know that.
But the thing is that comment
you can say that it will be better if you do. But
no, I do think that they know where they're going with it. I do think that they have. See, we flipped roles. Oh my gosh. Back half of season 5, you were doing this to me, and now I'm doing it to you. We talk each other down. This is what we do. I do think that in the writer's room, they know what they're doing. They have, I'm sure they have tons of notes all over their bulletin boards, all over their beat sheets. They know where this is going. Just because we don't see it yet is because we've got a white puzzle with a bunch of middle pieces in the middle. And the pieces
even
in the middle
if it's not white, if you don't have the picture that you're assembling.
Or just, the picture
you don't
of the
know
block
what
list.
you're doing.
That lovely opening shot where it's,
let me put it this way. You found this lovely little monkey. And you're assembling your little monkey there, and you found your little monkey, and it's a picture about monkeys. And then, look, there's a cat. Oh, let me assemble the cat. Oh, and then it's like, wait a minute, is it cats or monkeys? And then you find a piece that has a boat, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? The Noah's Ark? And you think you resemble Noah's Ark?
You know what
and
this is? This is the most amazing puzzle ever. I will make this puzzle.
Yeah, it's maybe what it is the cat is in a pillow and the monkey is in a picture in the wall, and you don't know whether that is what you're seeing or is part of the scenery in the picture because you don't know what the picture looks like. So I get that.
Thank you. You just made my point.
So you until I mean I got to hand it fine. I mean, I know that sometimes you have that retcon like with Tom because, hey, you had an idea for the character and then you had another idea and the woman that was playing his mother could not have possibly have him at age 14. So you got to adjust. I get that.
Could have.
But your main character, 3 years of birth, that's a little too much. So I think that there is a possibility that there is a second fire, that there is a whole different, more complex thing going on, especially because we have the parallels with Tom and Liz, and Tom and Liz had a very different relationship that they're doing.
I feel like the difference that you and I had, one of the things that I found myself noting. And I realized this, and yet I couldn't stop it. When I was watching the scene with Red on the stand, and I really do think this was intentional, because I think that's the reason he gave it in a third-person narrative. I could not see anybody but the Raymond Reddington we know, James Spader, the Red we know, as the hero of that story that he was telling. I could not see a third man. I could not, or a second man, or a third man, or what have you. I still, even looking at it and realizing that my brain is doing this, I still can't pull myself out of it. I still, and I have been toying with the idea. I keep telling Venting, like I pop in on some of her stuff over on Tumblr every once in a while. I'm like, what if they flip it again? Things I said, and I hate it because it goes back to unreliable narrative, and it's super sketchy to flip it that many times, and I don't like it. I think it goes overboard, but that doesn't mean that they won't.
So I do think that there is a master plan, and of course, what people have to think about it is. We're in episode 9. We still got a lot to go.
And that's also another thing is that because we're in the spring, like my brain is already on like, oh, we must be on episode 16, right? And it's like, no, you're not. Like they may be filming that right now.
It is episode 9. So we still got ways to go. And anyway, mythology wise, what I always say is go back and watch the scenes with Fitch. This doesn't make any sense.
The fact that they brought Fitch in is really nice. I was really happy with that they were able to get out.
Oh, I knew he was coming back. I always had him pegged as one of my main people in this thing.
He has to be. And I just always felt bad for him. I find it so funny that they said that, they filmed two different scenes to see if he could live, or like they wanted him to live so bad, and they filmed another scene with him living, but they had to have him die. I felt very similarly. I've written so many big AUs that reach back all the way to Fitch. Every time he dies, there's something about Fitch. He's got to go.
Well, because he's one of those.
He's the man with the answers. He's got to go.
Well, there is more than that, and here this is going to be my tangent of the day. This is
we do need to wrap pretty soon because this is going to be so long.
This is a short rant, but this is what it is. The object of the Cabal was not to exist as an evil organization. It was to end the Soviet Union, end the Cold War, and then the theory was to go back into the Cold War as a being more stable for the world. Mm-hmm. That's what it was made for.
Letting the world stabilize before the Cold War resumed.
No, they thought that the world was more stable in the bipolar world in the Cold War. So basically the 25 years was a gift so that so let's just end this war and we all get insane rich and then we go back. That's what it was. So
boy, doesn't that sound like our world?
Yeah, and then basically that's what it was. And the people in the Soviet Union, like Berlin, who were not into this thing, like, let's not end the Soviet Union. I love the Soviet Union. I love the tanks. I love when we put people on the moon. You know, those people got killed or sent to gulags because the object and the people who were... So Fitch created the cabal as a way to end the Cold War, as an intelligence project using cupidity. People like to get rich, so let's give them rich for 25 years and then end it. But then think about it.
Do you think Fitch was the originator of the cabal?
It was one of them. It was four people in 4 different powers.
And by the way, there's been at some point in one of our 70-something episodes that we've done, you made the comment that you thought all of the cabal members were American.
They're not Russians.
No. Well, they are an international organization.
Yeah.
Because you had made the comment that you thought they were all American. Because
no, that they were no Russians.
You may have moved that way, but we were talking about at the time because I remember hearing like a French accent and I want to say Chinese.
At the end, but not the beginning. At the beginning, I mean, if you think about where were the 4 parts of the fulcrum found in the United States, one was in a limousine that gives you the political power, in the presidential limousine. The other one was in the other one with somebody who was hiding with an environmentalist that gives me oil power. And then you have the Ruslan Denisov episode that goes in there, and then you have the bubble memory that was with somebody in the military, because that Ring was a military person, and Fitch that had the cipher. So
the days when we had so much mythology in every episode. I missed season 2.
Yeah. Season 2 was probably my favorite one, mythology was, because it was so much.
It was a lot.
And then why would you build something that can end your objective? You're a secret organization of bad people, and you create something that can take it down?
Because you don't. Because someone that was trying to save the family that she wanted did it.
No. Wait.
I think Katerina gave...
Fulcrum, yes, gave it. But who made it? The fulcrum was made in 4 pieces. All 4 were needed to work. If you had the bubble memory, you couldn't do anything with it. Aram couldn't crack it. If you had only the interface, you couldn't use it.
But the interface was at Red's apartment.
No, the interface was found in a limousine
That's right, he found it.
Kenyon.
Okay.
And that was probably whoever gave Kenyon the land or set him up.
Yeah.
The key was with Pepper that had something to do with oil.
The limousine, he hid things because the government couldn't come onto his property. He hid things for people and got paid for it.
People, but somebody got him started on the idea, and whoever did, that was the piece that was not on the surface.
Yeah, I was going to say the Kenyon group was not the brightest of the souls.
No. He didn't come up with that idea himself.
He was not an
Somebody gave it to him and hid that. And that, remember, that's the one that was not on the survey maps. He had survey maps of everything. That one was hidden. Mm-hmm. So, and the piece that belonged to Fitch was the cipher. That's why he gives Red the number of Cole, who is the one who wrote the cipher for Fitch. And he says that I wrote it for Fitch. So Fitch is the one who made the 4-piece fulcrum.
I'm waiting till the end of the show. I'm going to do a full rewatch. I just don't have time these days, and I feel like there's going to be so many things when I do a full rewatch that make so much more sense.
Yeah, but hear me out. So this Fitch created the Cabal, and Fitch created how to destroy the Cabal. And what is Fitch's last act on Earth? Is to give Red how to connect with Leonard Cole. So whatever you may want to think that Fitch was apparently doing, what he was doing was giving Red the means to destroy the Cabal.
Well, what did you say earlier about when people are listening in, when people are watching? I mean, the same thing you said about Cooper, that him saying certain things, how do we know that wire between Cat and Fitch wasn't tapped and his superiors were listening to him? And so he had to make it sound like he was handling the situation.
Yeah, exactly. So the Cabal was made to destroy the Cold War. The Fulcrum was made to destroy the Cabal. And had that come out, let's say, 5 years after the end of the Cold War, the Cabal would not have become that multi-headed Hydra that he speaks about. It would have been a small thing. It would have been destroyed. So whatever it seems to be, it's not. So that's my thing. And by the way, can we talk about Odysseus with the Cyclops and the heated thermometer that goes instead of the stake? Don't I love that?
Oh my gosh. So I was so excited. And I can't go into it because it's gonna be submitted for not a contest, but a fellowship. So I can't go into details, but I've been writing a spec script for the Blacklist for a fellowship application, and there were so many things, including Odysseus, references to Odysseus, because of you, Tessa. I did it as a nod for you. And so when Odysseus was highlighted and the Odyssey was highlighted in this, I was like, bloody hell, here we go.
Yep.
Let's everybody get a tighter hole. Let's go. And it was hilarious because he was referring to himself. It wasn't just that it was referencing the Odyssey. He was referring to himself as Odysseus. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I mean, it was just, hats off, friend. Hats off.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. And the meat thermometer, the heated meat thermometer.
I did not make that connection, but that, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that's a direct thing from the Odyssey.
It was the best option he had for it,
and it was beautiful because he just kept on walking, and you knew that when he just killed the guy, he's like, "You're so dead. You're so dead. You have no idea how dead you are."
Okay, let me just say, because I've been very rough, and we need to wrap up pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But I've been very rough on Red the last season or so, worth of episodes. I have been really rough on him. Well, honestly, I've been rough on him since he tried to kill Kate. I've had a lot of issues with him since he tried to kill Kate. And these last 2 episodes, I found myself the most fond of Red than I've been in a long time. And there were 2 reasons for it. God, sorry, I'm starting to wind down. My brain's starting to keel over on me. It's been a very long week. The first was when he told Dembé, I need you to find Marguerite Renard, but I need you to find her fast because I'm about to give Liz the same information. And Dembé said, why would you give Liz the same information? She says, because it's the only thing that'll save Jennifer. And Red is a self-serving bastard sometimes. He really is. But when push comes to shove, and push came to shove in that episode, he chose a better path. He chose someone else above himself, and not even just Liz above himself. He chose Jennifer, who we don't even know if it's his biological daughter or not. Honestly, it could go either way, and I lean towards not. But he cares enough about her, even though he's appeared not to. He does care enough about her to save her life and to go that route. And that gained a lot of favor with me because it goes back to that's been one of my biggest worries, is that Red is a legit villain that they're not going to redeem by the end of this. That is one of my major fears, and that gives me hope that it's inaccurate. And
well, you have also the assessment of the psychiatrist.
But there's the second thing that really stuck with me was his reaction about when the gang killed that guy. That he had set up, and they said he had basically promised him protection and couldn't deliver on it. The guy was dead. It's not like he could go, hey, he didn't deliver on this. And I mean, so it was more about Red's own personal moral compass than it was the backlash of it. It wasn't about how it affected him. It was about his moral compass, and the fact that his moral compass is, while very skewed, still a moral compass. And it's between saving Jennifer and killing the guy that killed the guy that refused to murder the other guy. Said body count makes good episode. Honestly, that was a really good moment, I think. I think it restored some faith for me personally. As someone that's been very negative on Red recently, it restored a lot of faith. I don't know how long it'll last. He may screw up in the next episode, and I might be right back to square one. But at least temporarily, it's gone a ways for someone that's been very negative on Red to feel some of that old love that I used. I mean, Red used to be one of my very favorite characters, and that's one of the reasons I've been so upset, is because I feel like that's been stolen from me. And so to have that restored was very nice.
So let's talk about Jennifer.
Yes.
She bailed out.
I'm glad, because I was afraid they were going to kill her, and I much prefer a bailing, because that gives even if Tom doesn't come back, which I would love for the last couple episodes Tom to come back around and him to be alive and everything. I would love for that, but honestly, in the end, the way they set it up, even if Tom is still dead, Liz could go get Agnes, go find Jennifer, and have a family. If Red's dead, Tom's dead, everybody's dead. She could still go get Agnes, take Agnes to Auntie Jenny, and they've got a family there.
Yeah. Well, I also found it very interesting that she said she's been hiding all her life, and now she's afraid that he's going to make her into what he's not, which is one thing that is making me believe that she is not his biological daughter. You know, that I think that Red is Reddington, even though that's not his only identity, and that he had been, and maybe not even the only person using the identity. So, but I found it very interesting the way they wrapped that up. I think that the episode really got Fiona to shine. It was great to see her. I mean, she just took a horrible beating. She was so scared. This is like she never got like the smooth lean into that Liz got. She was just dropped right in there, and there is like people and dead people, and they're kidnapping people. It was awful. For her, it must have been like a nightmare. Even though she seemed like, yeah, revenge is a bitch, and then he's like, well, maybe not.
Like, by the end of it, I feel like there was a lot of bravado there with her to try to make herself feel like she belonged in this world of chasing down a bad guy and making him pay, and, this almost like a person that's seen a lot of movies and is trying to imitate them and finds out that she lives in reality.
One of the things that I'm going to say this is my last comment on the episode, is about Jennifer. I want to draw attention to the way Jennifer. Do you remember that I've said that I don't think Jennifer believed that Red was an imposter? That she believed that Red was her father?
Yeah.
Well, the way she phrased it at the end is, I spent my life running from afraid of what I thought he was going to do to me. Now I'm afraid of what he will make me become by the things that I want to do to him. So in there, she's talking about Red as her father. And I think that's what it was about her. She wasn't really believing that it was an imposter. She just wanted to come back at him.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that, really
And she bailed
pieced that
out.
together. Yeah. And you know what? I don't blame her. She made the healthy, like, I understand Liz can't do it because then we'd have no story, but Jennifer just made the healthiest decision she could.
Yeah, after conspiring to send a man that I think she believes is her father to death penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, even it's funny because even in this universe, even the people who seem to be the healthiest are not exactly squeaky clean.
It is a very skewed version, yes. Everybody works in the gray. No one will get away from the grayness.
So I think that's it. Do you have anything else?
I don't. That was a lot, but it was a very packed full episode. So, all right.
So I guess until next week.
Yes. So you can find us on Tumblr, on Twitter, and on Facebook, and you can listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.